Your pride, Trump International Hotel Tower, New York. We've all heard of beauty makeover, something. The results are amazing. I like to do the same thing with building something. It requires more information to improve things in a big way that to build something new. The challenge can be more complex, which is why a lot of developers are quick to tear down existing structure and start over with building something. It requires more innovations and to improve things in a big way that to build something new. The challenge can be more complex, which is why a lot of developers are quick to tear down existing structure and over with side. I have a few good examples of buildings and businesses that were worth salvaging and they have turned out to be resounding success. The first thing to keep in mind is that you have to be resolved not to give up in the face of more problems that you might normally encounter. Toronto International Hotels and Tower is located on One Central Park West, a fantastic location with unobstructed views of the park. It has been rated the number one hotel in travel and leisure and the New York Post. What a lot of people don't know is that it was formerly the Gulf and Western Paramount Building. It was owned by General Electric, which had Jack Welch, John Myers, and Dale Frey at the helm. And it was an office building. It really stands out because it's one of the few tall towers on the west side. It went up early 1916, just before zoning laws were passed that would prohibit such tall buildings and that location. This building managed to attract a lot of attention, not just because of its height, but because of some construction problems that had the tenants of it. For one thing, it's swayed in the wind and would flash at the top with winds of only 50 miles per hour. All buildings have some flexibility, but this was an exceptional situation. Elevators will stop, and some tenants even say they feel seasick. Uh, Once, when there was a high wind, the upper windows fell out. These episodes were legendary. Let's just say this building had some problems, some pretty major problems. Also, it was not constructed very well because the outside curtain was made of glass um, and cheap aluminum. Hello, JB123. And it was chock full of asbestos. The good news was that the building structure was classic and had wonderful high ceilings. It was worth saving for those important reasons alone. When I heard this building was for sale, I called Dale Frey and asked to meet him. That is when I found out he was receiving calls from major developers around the country. I will have a lot of competition. However, I arranged for a meeting and I explained that if the building was completely demolished, it could only be rebuilt as a 19th story building versus the 52 fabulous stories that it was. That alone was a big reason to see what could be salvaged, but it would require a lot of research, which I immediately started doing. But I suggested, what does the steel structure could be strengthened, strengthened, and the high ceiling will be the ideal for a residential building, which was also a other item in the market that a business space will be. This was the perfect location for a luxury residential buildings. General Electric seemed impressed with my idea. Hello, Mauricio Araya 5445. Um, General Electric seemed impressed with my ideas. Esto quiere decir, eh, General Electric miraron y quedaron impresionados con mis ideas. And I feel good about their positive reaction to everything I had presented. Y me sentí bien con sus positivas reacciones con cada cosa que ellos presentaron. Significa. My only concern at this point was that I was just emerging from some financial problem, so they might be hesitate to take a chance of me. What happened next came as a shock. Dale Frey called to tell me that while he liked my plans a lot, they were putting the job out to bid. They will ask some of the biggest real estate firms in the country to put in a bid, and we hope I be among them. I was astonished by this because I had spent a lot of time on my concept and had explained it into them personally. Now I had to start over and bit like a newcomer to the project. I felt miserable and a bit outraged by these terms of even. I basically be entering a public contest which I didn't think was necessary. I was wondering if they had just been humoring me all that time, even though they appeared to be interested and impressed with my ideas. What could I do? I was finally interested. I already spent a lot of time and effort on this, so I finally swallowed my pride and decided to just go for it. I like challenge, me gustan los desafíos, and this bat become an ever bigger one. Y este era uno grande. Not that I was happy about it, so I wore a fantastic and detailed presentation. When I put everything into what you are doing, this was a good example. I seemed like ace, but General Electric finally called to say they were going with me. Being chosen by this power growth to develop this incredible site was wonderful news. Strong International Hotel Tower will become a reality. It made all the uh, one moment. Okay, and say in 1995 we began to demolish the former Gulf and Western Tower. Only the steel structure will remain. I hired Peter Johnson line up as the architect along with Cos Coldilis and Associates, so we were assured of a spectacular as well as elegant building. Philip Johnson had designed the State Theater and Lincoln Center, which is only a few blocks away. This was important building, and I want the very best. That is exactly what all of us got. Trump International Hotel and Tower is now the number one hotel in New York City. It is it includes Young George Restaurant, which is acknowledged as one of the greatest restaurants of the world. Hello, El Pinina. Condominium is the building stay on the market for a very short time. There are there are waiting lists for everything concerned with this building. It's also the first time a hotel and condominium have been combined with people now hail as an innovation. It wasn't an innovation to me. Use common sense. In fact, it is an idea that is copied around the world today and with great success. So take the time to think things through. Yes, the original building had major problems. Yes, the approval process was confounding, but that was part of the challenge. It also provided me with a great opportunity. Sometimes you have to look a little harder. Algunas veces tú tienes que mirar un poco duro to see those opportunities, para mirar las oportunidades. But believe me, it's worth it. Pero créeme, esto vale la pena. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's the conquering of fear. El coraje no es la ausencia de temor, es conquistar el temor. Courage means never giving up. Coraje significa nunca darse por vencido. It's much easier to give up. Es más fácil rendirse. And that is exactly what losers do. Y eso es exactamente eh, que los perdedores hacen. Being knocked, being knocked down is one thing. Staying down is another. Some very ordinary people have accomplished remarkable things be simple, being persistent, and never giving up. Abraham Lincoln is a good example. His courage made him extraordinary. On The Apprentice, the candidates must first go through a grueling audition process. There have been millions of applicants, and only a few people are chosen. Those are terrific odds. That's why I firmly believe that there are no losers. On that show, the people who try out for the program show grit, courage to be with. They are winners. Being fired in front of millions of people isn't easy, but that is part of the deal, and they persist anyway. Most of them said the experience was worth everything they put into it. Whether they won or not, Hemingway wrote the now familiar phrase, courage is grace under pressure. Think about it. Some days we are faced with challenges that we'd rather not have to deal with, but we get up and deal with them anyway. That is courage. It requires a certain poise. Maybe it's not a heroic, but every day isn't going to bring a calamitous situation, but it is an example of bravery, and we can all understand. Self confidence is a component of courage that we all need. Sometimes we need a push in the right direction. I work with a young executive who had never done any public speaking, so he decided he wasn't any good at it. He told me so, and I drew to myself, he hasn't any good at it. He told me so. Okay, one moment. I changed my. Okay, self confidence is a component of courage that we all need. Something we need a push in the right direction. I worked with a young executive who had never done a public speaking, so he decided he wasn't any good at it. He told me so, and I told myself he hasn't even tried public speaking, and he told me he's not that good at it. I had feeling he'd be good at it. A few months later, when I realized I wouldn't be able to make a dinner engagement that included a short speech, I told him he had to step in for me. He told me I don't to public speaking. I say to him, you you do know end of conversation. Do you know what? He's become an accomplished speaker. Courage is in the atmosphere, is the conquering of fear. The phenomenon of stage fright is a good example. I read an article recent about how common stage fright is even among professionals across. The phenomenon of stage fright is a good example. I read an article recently about how common stage fright is even among professional actors. There are a lot of very accomplished and famous performers who deal with it regular something for decades. They don't let their fear get in the way of their passion. I used to speak in front of tens of thousands of people, and I find it enjoyable, but I often have people ask me if I get nervous. I don't, I just go out and do it. Winston Churchill was a great orator, but I read that he spent a lot of time developing this skill. He wasn't natural in the beginning, but he worked at and it, and until he mastered it. He um, became a powerful and measuring speaker. One of his most famous speeches during World War II included these words: "Never, never, 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 in nothing great or small, large or petty, never giving in except to convictions of honor and good sense, never yield to force, never yield to the apparently overwhelming might of the enemy." Churchill and his people were in danger of being bombed out and overrun by the German military when he said that. You might not be experiencing the bliss, but you can still apply those words of courage to your daily life. Excuse me. Okay. There are days when I have so many problems come at me at once that I can see like the bliss. I don't give in to them, and neither shall you either. Another important thing about chorus is that it will help you think, act, and act in the right way. I will help you focus on the opportunity in front of you instead of on the problems. Problems are often opportunities coming at us in packaging that isn't what we expect or what. This has happened to me more times that I can count, so when I say I welcome problems, there is a reason for it. Keep your mind flexible and open to creative solutions to your problems. Einstein says you can solve a problem with the same thinking that create the problem. That is a good way to avoid brain cramps, and as well as find a solution. But to courage, remember that fear can be conquered. Know that you are capable of courage and that you are designed to success. Success. That is half the battle. Then go full throttle on the odds with we on your side. Be passionate. It is the only way to move mountains. Building Drones International Golf Club. When I decided to build my first golf course, I found a good piece of land near my Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach and decided to go all out. I hired with Facio, one of the all-time great golf course designers. When he told me he'd have to move over 3 million cubic yards of dirt to make the relatively flat and into a spectacular course. I didn't blink at eye. I was excited about building my first golf course and ready to move mountain if necessary. I did too, however, wonder what I got myself into once again. Shortly after hearing the 3 millions number, he told, John, never give up. Palm Beach. Me, it will be necessary to bring into over 5,000 trees, and about 1,000 royal pines and over 1,000 coconut trees. Then there will need to be about 2 millions worth of little plants to make everything look well groomed. The water feature for one whole number 17 will cost close to $3 million and take about 9 months to complete this. This was going to be an 18-hole course. I almost started to worry. I knew him was giving me straight. Well, throw out numbers for this war. His integrity is laying. This is simple how much it costs to get an extraordinary piece of work done, I told myself. The low point. I realized that my original 40 million estimate might be way too low. This is what happens when a developer who specializes in skyscrapers turns to golf course development. Was I making a huge mistake? Should I have struggled with terrain and that I knew more about already? I always told people to know what they were doing first, to do due diligence to the ninth degree, to be curious, cautionally optimistic. I suddenly found myself wondering why I didn't heed my own advice. I was facing a lot of new issues where I wasn't yet an expert. However, I was excited about the fact that we were building something outstanding and that kept me going. Jim Facio often says that one of the great things about working with me is that I never asking him if we were spending too much money. Instead, I asked, "Do you need anything else?" He said that attitude helped his creative process. I am glad he threw that because, in a big way, that is how this was. I have to admit that I had a few moments of doubt. Not big doubts, but doubts nevertheless. For example, it took a solid year to mow 3 million cubic yards of dirt and to transplant 5,000 trees. This wasn't fast going, but it was necessary and it was painstaking work of James part. Then the Department of Environmental Resources told us that only 50 acres could be cleared and a time which required us to plan the course in 7 sections. This also involved labeling all the trees and building a lay system. So it took a year before the golf course could even begin to be built. Fortunately, I patient man when it comes to things I care a lot about. I was very excited to have a spectacular course, and I realized that if this is what was required to have that, then so be it. I had made my decision and I decided to stick with it. I also knew I had a real pro working for me. With his reputation preceded him, and I could see for myself that he was totally reliable, as well as genuinely passionate about his work. What I expecting the possible when you are faced with situations like this, it's important to think about why you are doing whatever you are doing. The first place, there are always going to be some problems, and if you can remind yourself of your original goal, it helps to clarify and shed light on any doubts you might be having done that. I was reassured that and ready to move forward. Then I heard about the oak trees. 1,000 of them is it took 5 months to mow them in because each of them had to be wrapped and only three could be hauled in at a time. These oak trees were 20 to 14 feet tall each. They would line the fireways and would be worried. I hope it was around this time I heard about the Gopper's tortoises. This was definitely a new dilemma. I used to solving problems, but tortoises, 60 of them in fact. They had to be cared for absolutely. We weren't sharing the turf, and we want to make sure we found an equal of or better environment for them. Safety relocating then became a priority. I learned a lot about gopher tortoises. For example, they have been known to deep burrow as long as 40 feet by 10 feet deep. Just imagine what that could do to a golf course. So while I admire the tortoises for their industries, they had to be careful relocated. After more than a year of meticulous preparation, the course was actually being built. Every hole was treated as is his was to be the culmination of a great course, and the end results in that the course is an absolutely masterpiece. No other description does it justice. That is what I wanted, and that is what I got. Every tree was worth the time and effort, and believe me, I know about each and every tree. An additional 9-hole course was opened in 2006 to equal acclaim. It was being a resounding success on top of being an extraordinary achievement of the site. The success and beauty of Tron International Golf Tron set me out for building more golf courses, and all of them has been highly praised. And every success, each course came with its own set of challenges. But after tackling my first course, I was ready for them. Moving mountains, moving tortoise, no problem. Cow strong, make it happen in your life. My point to you is this: if you are passionate about your endeavors, it will be reflected back to you in your end result. Be sure to get the right people to work with you. Jim Facio is passionate about his work, as I am. His becomes apparent when you see the scope and quality of the finished course overcoming tremendous obstacles is all in a day's work. If you love what you are doing, remember that. Okay, thank you for watching and see you tomorrow or see you later. Goodbye.